Córdoba was on the brink of revival, its future hanging in the balance. As dawn broke over the fledgling empire, Abdul Rahman's vision had just begun to take root. The streets were buzzing with the promise of change, but danger was hiding in every shadow. Competing factions mutter of insurrection, and their plots weave a dark web of uncertainty. Outside the borders, enemies were waiting, ready to strip the fragile stability he had fought so hard to create. But in Córdoba, something flickered, a commitment to rise above the turbulence and fragmentation of the past. Emir's ambitions grew beyond survival. He envisioned turning this city into a glimmer of power, unity, and culture. An extraordinary empire. Folks, this is the story of Córdoba's metamorphosis, a story of resilience and brilliance. But the question arises, will the city shine as a jewel of the Islamic world, or will it fall under conspiracies? Abdul Rahman's legacy was truly remarkable. He dreamt of a city that wasn't just politically stable, but also a center of innovation, education, and art. His administration focused on promoting unity among different groups, Arabs, Berbers, and the native Iberians, and encouraged them to stay together for a mutual cause. He was struggling hard to make this place a center, a thriving empire. But this tale didn't end with him. His successors inherited his vision and worked effortlessly to build upon the solid foundation he had laid. The Great Mosque in Córdoba is one of the most iconic symbols of Al-Andalus and was an outcome of the path he set in motion. It stood as proof of the empire's expanding strength and sophistication. Emir's dreams were ambitious, but they came with certain challenges. Each step towards his goals required resilience and planning, and the vision he developed for Córdoba would only be successful with great struggles. Would his successors be able to turn Córdoba into the jewel of the Islamic world? Only time will tell. As the Great Mosque of Córdoba was constructed, this marked the start of a new chapter for Al-Andalus, a bold declaration of its expanding power and the relentless vision of its leader, Abdul Rahman I. This wasn't just a mosque, but a statement. For a land that had been known for conflict and division for so long, this structure would serve as a rat of hope. Abdul Rahman ordered the construction of a mosque with a clear purpose, to strengthen Córdoba as the heart of his empire. The mosque's foundation was laid on the remains of a Visigothic church, a symbolic transformation of the land's identity. He also wanted to develop a structure that would reflect the elegance and resilience of his government. The mosque's design was different from what Al-Andalus had seen before, perpetual rows of double-tiered arches that were supported by columns of marble and jasper created a nearly infinite horizon within its walls. The red and white stripes of the arches became a defining image of Islamic art in Spain. Its detailed carvings, motivated by both Umayyad traditions and local influences, spoke of a cultural blending that defined the region. But it was something more than aesthetics, a symbol of faith and resilience for the people of Al-Andalus. It served as a place where different communities came together and united under the shared belief for a greater cause. The mosque was a reminder of Abdul Rahman's vision, a call to rise beyond divisions and embrace the potential of unity. It was more than just a place of worship. The Great Mosque of Córdoba was a bold declaration. Al-Andalus was here to stay, a thriving empire standing tall against all odds. It was a memorial to a leader who had taken a weak land and dared to dream of greatness. Córdoba's transformation under Abdul Rahman and his successors was simply remarkable. What was once a war-torn city soon became the heartbeat of a flourishing kingdom, remembered for its intellect, culture, and artistry. It was more than a city, it was a ray of enlightenment that drew talents from across the Islamic world and even Europe. Córdoba's streets became a tapestry of ideas. Scholars, poets, scientists, and artisans came to the city and brought diverse perspectives that supplemented its cultural fabric. It became home to libraries containing books on topics ranging from astronomy to medicine, philosophy to mathematics. It can be said that Córdoba wasn't just keeping knowledge alive during a time of European darkness, it was steadily advancing it. Abdul Rahman's vision for Córdoba included not just governance but also fostering a society that thrived on intellectual exchange. The rulers who followed him continued to prioritize education, building institutions where the brightest minds could come, study, and collaborate. The blending of Andalusian, Arabic, and classical influences gave rise to unique architectural styles, groundbreaking scientific discoveries, and literary masterpieces. The poets wrote verses that resonated across centuries, while mathematicians introduced revolutionary ideas to solve complex problems. Astronomers refined celestial models, and scientists introduced advances that would later inform the revitalization. Physicians developed techniques that would shape modern medicine, and the city's artisans created works of art that resonated with its cultural elegance. But Córdoba wasn't just a city of scholars and artists, it was a place where people of different beliefs could coexist and take part in its success. This spirit of mutual respect was rare for its time, so this became one of the defining features of Al-Andalus. The city was soaked in the glow of lights and hustled with the sounds of life and learning. It became the testament to Abdul Rahman's vision, a united, flourishing empire where culture and knowledge thrived. Now, as Córdoba reached new heights, questions arise. Could this euphony last? Would internal tensions and external enemies disrupt the fragile balance of this golden era? The city's brilliance was beyond question, but it was standing on a weak foundation, which makes its lasting success a tale still unfolding. Córdoba was developing, but the road to success wasn't simple. The earliest monarchs who followed in Abdul Rahman Daud's footsteps inherited a strong but fractious empire. From the outside, it might seem as simple as keeping his vision alive, but balancing the city and the empire came as a compromise. It required careful navigation through a maze of obstacles, internal and external. Internally, one of the greatest complications was managing the empire's diverse and sometimes divided population. Although Córdoba had become a center of unity, the rest of Al-Andalus wasn't quite stable. The region still grappled with tribal rivalries, especially between the Arabs and Berbers, who had different interests and histories. Those divisions were often reintroduced, risking to dispel the fragile unity Abdul Rahman had fought so tirelessly to cultivate. They had to balance power among these groups, ensuring that no single group ever became too powerful, while also avoiding alienating any segment of the population. The other challenge was resource management. As the population grew, so did Córdoba's requirements. Food for the people, water for irrigation, and trade routes to keep the flow of wealth coming in, all needed to be effectively managed. In a land surrounded by opponents, the ability to maintain supply chains and protect resources was important in sustaining the city's success. Externally, Córdoba faced constraints from its neighboring Christian kingdoms, whose expanding power in the north threatened the strength of Al-Andalus. These kingdoms, specifically Castile and Leon, were yearning to reclaim territory that had been lost centuries before to the Muslims. They frequently conducted raids and military operations to weaken the Islamic State. Córdoba's rulers had to make hard decisions among those threats on whether to spend scarce resources to have their cities advance or to invest in their borders. Rival factions in the Islamic world were also suspicious of Córdoba. The Abbasids, who created the larger Islamic empire in the east, had a special concern about the Umayyads' base in Spain. Far from settled anywhere, the Umayyads were not universally accepted, and the possibility of rebellion always loomed. The rulers of Córdoba found themselves in a constant battle, not just to defend their land, but also to maintain the delicate balance between political unity, cultural growth, and military readiness. These initial struggles tested their rule and crafted the destiny of Al-Andalus. The empire was slowly flourishing, but its lasting success would depend on the elimination of the many obstacles in its way. Amid the disarray of medieval Europe, when most of the continent was covered in darkness, Córdoba stood as a dazzling ray of light. While the rest of Europe was mired in instability, ignorance and isolation, Córdoba blossomed into a hub of knowledge, culture and progress. It was more than a city, an example of how different peoples could coexist and thrive together. This transformation was at the heart of the Great Library of Córdoba, home to an impressive collection of ancient literature from the Greeks, the Romans and the Islamic world. The library was not only a place for education, it was a living institution that contributed toward preserving the wisdom of the ages. In those halls, the work of classical Greece and Rome was translated into Arabic to prevent the knowledge of the past from rotting away with time. Many such texts eventually reached Europe during the Renaissance, igniting a new era of intellectual inquiry. Córdoba's mosques and castles were also centers of cultural exchange. Architects, artists, and craftsmen from all over the Muslim world came to the city and contributed to its breathtaking architectural legacy. The construction of the Great Mosque of Córdoba was one of the most noteworthy architectural achievements of the era. Its extensive, complicated design and elegant use of light and space influenced not only Islamic architecture, but also European design centuries later. Additionally, the city became an initial center for scientific advancement. You must be aware of the renowned physician and philosopher Ibn Rushd, Averroes, who lived and worked in Córdoba. His writings on Aristotle had an absolute impact on both the Islamic and Christian worlds, which influenced thinkers like Thomas Aquinas. Scholars in Córdoba were stepping into fields ranging from astronomy to chemistry and from medicine to mathematics. These accomplishments didn't just shape the future of Al-Andalus, but laid the foundation for the intellectual rebirth that would ultimately drift through Europe. But what truly set Córdoba apart was its prevailing tendency of coexistence. Muslims, Christians, and Jews lived side by side, exchanging ideas, sharing knowledge, and working together in a society where intellectualism was celebrated above all. The city's openness to learning from other cultures made it a vibrant melting pot of ideas, all contributing to the flourishing of Al-Andalus. In those dark times when Europe appeared to be stuck in the shadows of the past, Córdoba was a testament that knowledge, progress, and revolution could still flourish. It was a city where the light of learning burned brighter than ever before. It is going to become a city that will inspire many generations to come. As Córdoba thrived, it became a glimmer of hope in an otherwise stormy world, where light emerged through the darkness of ignorance and confusion. The seeds sown by Abdul Rahman and his mentors had put forth shoots into a growing, intellectual and cultural powerhouse. Yet with greatness always comes the threat of downfall. Would the light of Córdoba endure in brilliance, or would the glooms of divisions, rebellion and external threats prove too influential to overcome? They were following Abdul Rahman's footsteps, who had handed over to them a city which was not just a political capital, but the epicenter of a state with a multi-border influence that shaped the world. What a cost will arise as the ambitions of rulers clash with the harsh realities of governance, power, and survival. What happens next may write the destiny of Al-Andalus and perhaps redirect the course of history. Would this beacon of knowledge and prosperity survive? Or would it break down underneath the weight of conspiracies,